Man, it's been a long time since we had some rest.
Yeah, the Blood Nights are finally over, though.
Yep, and in a few weeks we'll be at the castle, fighting King Bob.
It's been a good journey.
I just like sitting next to this fire. When I was a kid, my brothers and I would gather around a fire and tell stories.
Like what?
They used to scare me with this story about puppet magic. That's some type of illegal magic where the user slits the arms and legs of another person and then drains their blood out to use as puppet strings.
Yeesh.
You know any good stories, Jim?
I do remember one. Legend tells of a faraway carrier village nestled somewhere in the distant mountains. You see, most carrier villages were full of nomads who came and went all the time, but the carriers in this village preferred to stay in their quiet town and gather food for the winter. However, one year winter came early, and a freezing storm froze over the crops and buried the town in snow. The villagers were suspicious because it had never been so cold at this time of year, but one day a massive storm hit, blowing in from one side of the mountain, and a strange creature appeared on the edge of the village. It was a tall, dark figure that resembled the shadow of a dragon. The great beast would sneak down into the village at night and raid the houses, killing the livestock and stealing young children away from their homes. Each morning at sunrise, it would fly back up to the mountain where it slept. The villagers wanted to fight it, but the snowstorm around the mountain was so thick no one could get anywhere near it. The villagers offered a huge reward to anyone who could capture the beast. Dozens of brave warriors showed up, and a few made it to the top of the mountain, but none returned. To make matters worse, the monster continued to make snowfall. No crops could grow in the village. The villagers were getting tired of starving and having their children stolen by the beast. But one day, a little carrier boy decided that he'd had enough. He'd waited for nightfall and took his father's sword, then walked outside. Sure enough, the beast was right there. The boy watched from a safe distance as it finished a meal, and then left for the mountain top. The boy followed the beast up the tall, winding mountain trail. Behind it, he was protected from the harsh snowstorms. Eventually, they reached the mountain top. The boy followed the monster into its cave. As the monster dragged the carcass of its latest prey deep within the cave, the boy drew his father's sword. "I'm not afraid of you, monster," said the boy. "I know I can beat you." The monster looked on with its glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness of the cave. It let out a loud, booming laugh. "You should be afraid of me," growled the great beast. "I could rip the flesh off your bones in seconds." The monster howled with laughter, breathing freezing air out of its dripping mouth. The boy looked up at the black beast and raised his sword to meet the monster's eyes. The great beast spewed ice toward the boy, but he continued to stand. The great monster fought as hard as he could, raining cold ice storms upon the boy. But the sword that he carried protected him from the ice and snow. Finally, the beast became tired and ran out of breath. The monster admitted defeat. He cursed the boy with his dying breath. The boy raised his sword into the air and drove it down into the monster's head. The monster exploded in a cloud of black gas and faded into the wind. The long winter that had plagued the land had ended. The clouds began to break and the snow melted into the soil. The boy returned home from the mountain, where he was greeted and thanked by the villagers. The evil that had troubled them was gone. The end. It's been about 20 years since I saw my mom, and I still remember that story. What do you think, Carlton? Carlton!
Whoa, oh, yeah. Yeah, great story, Jim.
Did you sleep through the whole thing?
No, I just kind of dozed off at the part about the early winter.
That was the beginning of the story.
And what a story it was, Jim. Good night.
Good night, Carlton.